It was my daughter's birthday, and I arrived at her house early with her favorite cake. I knocked on the door with a smile, expecting to see her face light up the way it did when she was a little girl. But when she opened it, her expression was one of total annoyance, as if she didn't want to see me at all. "Oh, it's you?" she murmured, without even looking me in the eye. But before we continue, make sure you are subscribed to the channel and leave a comment. Where are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories travel. I still remember the smell of the salted caramel dark chocolate cake I brought to my daughter Jessica's house that afternoon. It was her 43rd birthday, and I had saved 3 months of my pension to buy that small masterpiece from the French bakery she loved so much. $150 that I didn't really have, but that I spent with pleasure just to see her smile. The Uber dropped me off in front of the mansion I had helped finance 5 years ago, a 3-story house in the best neighborhood of Santa Barbara, California, with an ocean view and an infinity pool. $200,000 of my savings for the down payment. Money I had saved penny by penny over 45 years as a university professor, working overtime and tutoring on weekends. I adjusted my turquoise dress, also new for the occasion, and rang the doorbell, balancing the cake in one hand and holding a small silver package in the other, containing a diamond necklace that had belonged to my mother. 3 generations of strong women, I thought. What a wonderful legacy to pass on. The door opened, but Jessica's face didn't light up as I had hoped. Her eyes barely met mine before returning to the iPhone in her hand. "Oh, it's you," she muttered, stepping aside to let me in. Not a kiss, not a hug, as if I were just another DoorDash delivery. "Happy birthday, my darling," I said, trying to keep the enthusiasm in my voice. "I brought your favorite cake and a special little gift." Jessica sighed deeply, as if my presence were a nuisance she was forced to tolerate. "Put it on the kitchen island. I need to finish this call." I walked alone to the Italian marble kitchen, another gift from me when they remodeled the house and placed the cake delicately on the countertop. Through the window, I saw the twins, my 11-year-old grandsons, playing in the pool with their private swim coach. They didn't even notice my presence. I stood there, listening to the echo of the empty house, feeling like a stranger invading a space where I clearly wasn't welcome. 15 minutes later, Jessica entered the kitchen. She looked stunning as always, hair perfectly highlighted, makeup flawless, nails done. All of this paid for by the high-end med spa I had funded for her 8 years ago, $150,000, so she could realize her dream of being an entrepreneur, a loan I had taken out using my own condo as collateral and which was never repaid. Then, opening the Sub-Zero fridge and taking out a bottle of sparkling water, she said, "Did you just come to drop off the cake? Or are you staying for dinner too?" The coldness in her voice cut me like a knife. I swallowed hard, trying to control my disappointment. "I thought maybe we could spend some time together on your birthday. It's been almost 2 months since we've seen each other." She replied, checking her phone again. "Actually, I have plans for later. Mark is taking me to dinner at the Lark. Just the 2 of us." Mark, her 3rd husband, a man who lived off unspecified tech investments and who curiously always needed my financial help for his emergency projects. The last one had been just 3 weeks ago, $15,000 for a supposed import business that couldn't wait. Money I had taken from my savings for my medical treatments. "I understand," I replied, trying to hide the pain in my voice. "Maybe we can do lunch tomorrow then." Jessica rolled her eyes and finally looked directly at me. Her face was tense, as if she were holding back something she had wanted to say for a long time. "Mom, we need to talk." She pointed to the high stools around the kitchen island. "Sit down." I obeyed, feeling a knot form in my stomach. I knew that tone. It was the same one she used as a child before saying something deliberately cruel to test my limits. "I've been thinking a lot lately," she began, slowly twirling the glass of water between her fingers. "About my birthday, about life, about what would really make me happy." I nodded, trying to look encouraging. "Of course, honey. Tell me what you want. Maybe I can help in some way." Jessica slammed the glass down on the table with a dull thud and looked me straight in the eyes. What I saw there froze me to the bone. It wasn't love, or even passing irritation. It was pure contempt. "The only thing I would really like to receive as a birthday gift," she said slowly, pronouncing every word with deliberate cruelty, "is for you to simply disappear from my life, preferably for you to die." The world stopped. The air was sucked out of the room. I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. It was as if someone had physically punched me in the chest. "What?" was all I could whisper. "You heard me," she continued, now with calculated coldness. "I'm tired of you, Mom. Tired of your constant calls, your unexpected visits, your way of always meddling in my life with your old-fashioned advice, and your unbearable emotional neediness." My hands began to tremble uncontrollably. 74 years of life, 43 years being her mother, and never, ever did I imagine I would hear such words come out of my only daughter's mouth. "Jessica," I managed to say through tears that were starting to form, "I am your mother. I gave you everything. I sacrificed everything for you." "Exactly," she exclaimed, getting up from the stool. "That's why you're suffocating me. I can't breathe with your constant presence. I need space. I need freedom. I need to live my life without having to deal with your expectations and your emotional drama." I looked at the birthday cake, the candles still in the box, waiting to be lit. Everything I had imagined for that day, hugs, laughter, shared memories, vanished like smoke. "But Jessica," I tried one more time, "I just want to be close to you, to be part of your life. You are everything I have." "And that is exactly the problem," she replied, crossing her arms. "The fact that I am everything you have. Fix your own life and leave me alone." I got up from the stool, my legs shaking so much I feared I would fall. I grabbed my purse and the small package with the diamond necklace. The cake would stay. Maybe the twins would appreciate it, even if their mother couldn't. "I can't believe you're saying this to me," I murmured. "After everything I did for you." "Everything you did," she laughed sarcastically. "Mom, everything you did was for your own benefit, to feel necessary, to have control over my life. But I'm not a child anymore, and I don't need you suffocating me." I walked toward the door, every step costing me years of life. On the threshold, I turned one last time, hoping to see some regret in her eyes, some trace of that sweet little girl I had raised with so much love. But I only saw impatience for me to leave so she could continue her life free of the burden I apparently represented. "Happy birthday, Jessica," I whispered, and left, closing the door softly behind me. What my daughter didn't know as she watched me leave that sunny afternoon is that she had ignited something inside me that had remained dormant for decades, a flame that was not of self-destruction, but of rebirth. The Uber dropped me off in front of my small condo in the city center, a modest 2-bedroom place I had bought with the money from the sale of the family home after my husband died 20 years ago. I stumbled inside, dropped my purse on the floor, and collapsed onto the worn sofa, the same sofa where I had rocked Jessica as a baby, where I had read her stories every night, where I had dried her tears after every disappointment. Her words echoed in my mind like a cruel refrain. "For you to die." My own daughter had wished for my death as a birthday gift. The pain was physical, an overwhelming weight on my chest that made it difficult to breathe. I spent the night awake remembering every moment, every sacrifice, every penny I had invested in her over 4 decades. When Jessica was 5 and was diagnosed with severe asthma, I worked extra shifts at the university to pay for specialized treatments that insurance didn't cover. That was $5,000 in consultations and medications. Money I got by selling the wedding jewelry my husband had given me. At 16, when she wanted to do an exchange program in France, I took out a second mortgage on this very condo to pay the $25,000 for the program. "Thank you, Mommy," she had told me at the time, hugging me tight at the airport. "You are simply the best mother in the world." Words that now seem to belong to another life, another person. In college, when Jessica decided to change her major 3 times from pre-law to architecture, then to business administration, I paid for every semester without a single complaint. In total, it was nearly $180,000. Money I managed by teaching extra classes on weekends and holidays, sacrificing any personal life I might have had. When she married her first husband, an extravagant ceremony for 300 guests at the Plaza Hotel, it was I who paid for everything $80,000. The designer dress, the imported flowers, the band, the gourmet banquet. "It's the happiest day of my life, Mom," she had said, radiant in her princess dress. "And it's all thanks to you." The divorce came 2 years later, followed by a second, even more expensive marriage, which also ended in less than 3 years. And then, Mark, the current husband, the 3-story house, the med spa, the luxury SUV I helped finance when the old one broke down $60,000. The private prep schools for the twins, $15,000 per semester. At dawn, I started doing the math. I found an old box where I kept all the receipts, all the transfer slips, all the contracts I had signed over the years, not out of distrust, but out of organization. An old math professor never loses her habits. Sitting at the kitchen table, with a cup of cold tea I didn't have the heart to drink, I started listing every amount, every date, every reason. The total left me stunned. Over $1.5 million throughout 43 years, almost $1.5 million that I had dedicated to my daughter's happiness, and all that to hear that her greatest wish was my death. Something strange happened while I looked at those numbers. The stabbing pain I had felt all night began to transform into something different. Not rage, although there was rage too, but a crystal clear clarity I had never experienced before. A deep understanding that I had been manipulated for decades by someone who viewed my love as a utility, not a sacred bond. If I had invested those $1.5 million in myself, if I had traveled, studied more, bought a better house, taken care of my health, planned a comfortable retirement, where would I be now? Certainly not in this small condo, counting the pennies of my diminished pension, postponing medical treatments to keep helping a daughter who wished me dead. At 6 a.m., I did something I had never done before. I picked up the phone and blocked Jessica's number. Then I blocked Mark's. Then all the numbers associated with her family. It was a small gesture, but symbolically powerful. My first act of self-preservation in 4 decades. I took a long bath, put on my best clothes, a pantsuit and blazer I rarely wore to save them, and left the house with a defined purpose that did not involve my daughter for the first time in years. First stop. The bank. The same bank where Jessica and I had a joint account for emergencies, into which I regularly deposited small sums for any unforeseen event that might arise in her life. An account that at that moment had a balance of $45,000. "Good morning, Dr. Eleanor," greeted the manager, Mr. Henderson, who had known me for years. "How can I help you today? I want to close joint account number 4,926 to 7,891. I replied with a calmness that surprised even me. "Are you sure?" "That account has a considerable balance," he warned, consulting the computer. "Absolutely sure," I confirmed, signing the forms with a steady hand. "I want to transfer all that money to my personal account, please." Seeing those $45,000 return to my own account gave me a strange sense of power, a power I hadn't felt in decades. It was just the beginning. Next stop, the mortgage lender. When Jessica and Mark bought the Ocean View mansion, I not only provided the down payment, but also signed as a co-signer on the loan. That meant if they couldn't pay, the responsibility would fall on me. But it also meant I had rights regarding that property. Dr. Eleanor, the loan officer, Mrs. Robinson, received me with a smile. "What brings you here today?" "I want to review the terms of the mortgage contract where I appear as a guarantor," I explained. "I need to understand exactly what my rights and obligations are." While she looked for the documents, I remembered the day I signed those papers. Jessica had cried with emotion. "Thank you, Mom. You are our guardian angel. I love you so much," she had said, hugging me tightly. Mark had also thanked me profusely, assuring me they would never miss a payment. "Here is all the documentation," Mrs. Robinson said, placing a thick folder in front of me. "As a co-signer, you are responsible for the payments if the primary holders cannot make them. But you also have the right to claim against the property or force a sale if you believe the debtors will not be able to meet their obligations and your credit is at risk." "Exactly," I replied, carefully examining every page. "What would be the next steps if I decided to exercise my rights to protect my credit?" "You would need to demonstrate that there is a risk of default or that there have already been significant delays," she explained. What Mrs. Robinson didn't know, and what Jessica had unconsciously revealed to me the week prior, was that Mark had recently lost a substantial sum in a failed crypto investment and that they had missed the last mortgage payment. Information she shared casually, probably expecting me to offer help as I always did. "Perfect," I murmured, gathering copies of all the important documents. "And if I wanted to initiate that process?" Mrs. Robinson looked at me with curiosity but maintained her professionalism. "I can schedule a meeting with our legal department if you wish." "Please do." When I left the office, I felt a strange lightness, as if I were floating above the hot city sidewalks. For 43 years, I had lived for Jessica. I had sacrificed my own dreams, my money, my time, my health, everything, to give her the life she always wanted, and the result? She wished for my death as a birthday present. My next stop was a place I hadn't visited in years, Golden Years Expat Services, a travel agency specializing in new beginnings for seniors. I had kept a brochure of theirs for years, secretly dreaming of possibilities that always seemed out of reach. "Good afternoon," greeted a young consultant named Lucy. "How can I help you?" "I saw your program regarding retirees abroad," I replied, sitting comfortably in the chair across from her desk. "I would like complete information on how a 74-year-old woman can start a new life in Florence, Italy." The following days were a roller coaster of emotions and secret preparations. Every morning I woke up with a mixture of pain, determination, and something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. It was as if I had woken up from a long trance where I lived only to satisfy my daughter's whims, and now, finally, I was living for myself. On Tuesday, my phone rang insistently. It was Jessica. The block didn't stop voicemails from appearing in a separate folder. I ignored the call. She called 5 more times, leaving increasingly irritated messages. "Mom, I need to talk to you." "Mom, are you okay?" "Why aren't you answering?" "Mom, the twins have a school presentation on Thursday, and we need you to stay with them afterward." "Mom, I'm starting to get worried." The irony didn't escape me. The same woman who had wished for my death as a birthday gift was now worried because I wasn't answering her calls, not because she missed me or cared about my well-being, but because she needed me for something. On Wednesday, I received a visit from my neighbor and lifelong friend, Dorothy, a 70-year-old woman who had silently witnessed all my sacrifices for Jessica over the decades. "Eleanor," she said, sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee, "you look different." "Did something happen?" I told her everything. Every painful word of Jessica's birthday, every detail of the plans I was making. Dorothy listened in silence, her eyes gradually filling with tears. "My God, Eleanor," she murmured when I finished. "I can't believe Jessica said something so cruel to you after everything you did for her." "The most painful part is that she said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world," I explained, "as if I were just an obstacle in her life that needed to be eliminated. And are you really going to Italy?" "Yes," I replied firmly. "I already bought the ticket. I'm leaving next week." Dorothy held my hands gently. "You know you have my full support, right? What Jessica did is unforgivable." "There is something else," I said, lowering my voice. "I'm going to need your help with something very special." I explained my complete plan. I wanted Jessica to believe I had died at least for a while. Dorothy would be my accomplice, the person who would find my empty apartment and the farewell letter I would leave. "It's brilliant," Dorothy murmured with a conspiratorial smile. "That ungrateful girl is finally going to understand what it means to lose you. Will I help you?" "Absolutely. In fact, I think it's exactly what Jessica needs to get a reality check." That night, I worked on the most important letter of my life, the letter that would change everything forever. I wrote and rewrote every word, making sure it conveyed exactly what I wanted to say. "My dear Jessica," I began, "you asked me as a birthday gift to disappear from your life, and I have decided to grant your wish. By the time you read this letter, I will already be far from here, starting the life I should have lived decades ago, instead of sacrificing everything for you." I continued writing for hours, documenting every penny I had spent on her, every sacrifice I had made, every opportunity I had lost, by always being available for her needs. But it wasn't a bitter letter, it was educational. I wanted her to understand exactly what she had lost. "Along with this letter, you will find copies of all the legal documents I signed this week," I continued. "The change in my will, the cancellation of your supplemental health insurance plan that I paid for, the notification that, as co-signer of your mortgage, I have decided to exercise my rights due to your recent financial instability, and the closure of all the benefits you received from me." It was an 18-page letter that meticulously detailed everything that would change in her life now that I had disappeared exactly as she wanted. "Your life will be much easier without me," I concluded, "but it will also be much more expensive. I hope it was worth it." On Thursday, while packing my most important belongings into 2 suitcases, I received another call from Jessica. Again, I didn't answer. She called 4 more times, leaving increasingly desperate messages. In the last one, her voice sounded genuinely distressed. "Mom, Please call me. Something happened. I need your help. The bank called us for an emergency meeting tomorrow about the mortgage. Please call me as soon as you hear this message." So that was it. The bank had already contacted her about my request to review the contract. Reality was starting to set in. On Friday, Mark appeared at my door. He looked exhausted and desperate, with deep circles under his eyes and unshaven facial hair, a very different image from the always elegant and confident man I knew. "Eleanor," he said with a pleading voice, "Jessica told me what happened between you two. I know what she said was terrible, even unforgivable, but please don't do this to our family." "Do what?" I asked, feigning innocence. "The bank told us you are initiating a process regarding the house due to mortgage delays. Please, Eleanor, it was just 1 month. I had some problems with investments, but I'm going to solve everything, I promise you." It was fascinating. When Jessica wanted to get rid of me, I was a nuisance. But when they realized I controlled the financial reins that maintained their lavish lifestyle, suddenly, I was important again. "Mark," I said calmly, "your wife was very clear with me. My presence in her life is a burden she no longer wants to bear. I am only respecting her wishes. But Eleanor, you know how Jessica is when she's angry? She didn't mean that." "She didn't mean it?" "Because she sounded quite convincing when she wished for my death as a birthday gift." Mark lowered his head. He knew he had no argument to defend the indefensible. "Please," he insisted, "give me a chance to fix this. I'll talk to Jessica. I'll make her understand how wrong she is." "It's too late," I replied, slowly closing the door. "Give my grandsons a kiss for me." Saturday was my last day in that city where I had spent my entire life. I walked through the places that had been important to me. The university where I taught for 38 years, the park where I took Jessica as a child, the church where I married her father. It was my silent farewell to a life I had lived completely for others. On Sunday, a life would begin that I would finally live for myself. On Sunday morning, Dorothy knocked on my door as we had agreed. She brought fresh coffee and a knowing smile that filled me with energy. "Ready for your great escape?" she asked, winking. "More than ready," I replied, taking my 2 suitcases to the door. "Do you have the spare keys to my condo?" "Here they are," she said, showing the set of keys I had given her the night before. "And I also have the letter for Jessica and all the documents you are going to leave." We had planned everything meticulously. Dorothy would wait until Tuesday to go to Jessica's house and deliver the documents, pretending she had found my apartment empty and had become worried about my disappearance. "Remember," I instructed her while we waited for the Uber, "you have to seem genuinely worried. Tell her I didn't answer the phone for 2 days, that you knocked on my door and I didn't answer, and that when you used the emergency keys you found the apartment empty and the letter." "Don't worry, Eleanor. I was an amateur theater teacher for 20 years. It will be the performance of my life," Dorothy assured with a mischievous smile. The car arrived promptly at 6 a.m. While the driver loaded my suitcases, I took one last look at my condo. I had lived there for 15 years, but strangely I felt no nostalgia. It was as if I were finally freeing myself from a prison I had built myself. "To the airport?" asked the driver. "To the airport," I confirmed, and felt as if those 3 words marked the beginning of my new existence. The flight to Florence was long, but peaceful. For the first time in decades, no one knew where I was. No one could call me to ask for favors, money, or time. It was an intoxicating feeling of freedom I hadn't experienced since before becoming a mother. During the flight of almost 2 hours, I wrote in my journal everything that had happened in the last week, every detail, every emotion, every decision that had brought me to that moment, suspended in the sky between my past of self-denial and my future of self-discovery. "This is the first time in 43 years, I wrote, "that I am doing something completely for myself, without calculating how it will benefit Jessica. It is terrifying and liberating at the same time." I arrived in Florence on Monday morning, local time. A representative from the travel agency was waiting for me at the airport with a sign with my name. He was a young and kind man named Marco, who spoke English with a charming Italian accent. "Dr. Eleanor," he greeted me with a genuine smile. "Welcome to Italy. I hope you are ready for a new adventure." "More than ready," I replied, and for the first time in weeks, my smile was completely authentic. Marco took me to a small but charming furnished apartment near the Piazza della Signoria that the agency had rented for a month while I decided if I wanted to stay permanently. It was on the third floor of a centuries-old building with windows overlooking a cobblestone street and flower-filled balconies on the neighboring buildings. "Here is all the information about the city," Marco said, handing me a thick folder. "Recommended restaurants, cultural activities, social groups for expats, Italian classes, medical contacts in case you need them. I also scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor for Wednesday to help you with the paperwork if you decide to stay permanently." That afternoon, after a short rest, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went for a walk without a defined destination, without schedules, without commitments, without anyone expecting me to solve their problems. I walked through the narrow, winding streets of Florence, marveling at the Renaissance architecture, the small cafes on the corners, the artisan shops. I sat in a piazza and ordered a cappuccino and a cornetto. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, watching the pigeons, the tourists, the locals. A strange sensation began to form in my chest. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't guilt, it was peace. While walking back to the apartment in the late afternoon, I mentally calculated how much money I had spent on Jessica just in the last 5 years. Between the down payment on the house, the payments for the med spa, the car, the twins' schools, the constant emergencies, it had been at least $600,000. Money that I could have used to travel the world, to live comfortably, to realize dreams I had postponed for decades. Instead, I gave it all to a daughter who considered my love a burden and my presence a nuisance. At 8 p.m. Florence time, I calculated it would be 11 a.m. in Santa Barbara. Dorothy would be preparing to go to Jessica's house to deliver the letter that would change everything. I sat on the small balcony of my temporary apartment drinking a glass of Chianti and waited. I knew that in a few hours my phone would begin to ring desperately. Jessica would finally understand what it really meant to lose me. At midnight, my phone began to vibrate insistently. It was Jessica. I let it ring until it stopped. Immediately, it rang again, and again, and again. On the 5th attempt, I answered. "Mom!" she screamed, her voice choked with crying. "Where are you?" "Dorothy showed up at the house with a letter from you. She said you disappeared. What is happening? What kind of madness is this?" "Hello, Jessica," I replied calmly, watching the lights of the ancient city as I spoke. "Did you read the letter?" "Yes, I read it." "Have you gone crazy? How could you do this to us? Where are you?" "I am exactly where I need to be, far away from you, as you wished. But I didn't want that. I didn't want you to actually leave. I was just angry, frustrated." There it was, Jessica's typical tactic. Minimize the damage she had caused, make me feel guilty for reacting to her cruelty. "You didn't mean it when you told me your greatest birthday wish was for me to die?" I asked. "Because you sounded quite convincing. I was just stressed. Mark lost money on an investment. The kids are having trouble at school. The clinic isn't doing well. I shouldn't have taken it out on you. You're right. You shouldn't have. But it's done. And words cannot be unsaid. But Mom, please come back. We need you. I need you." How interesting this was. Now she needed me. Now that she had read the letter detailing all the financial benefits she had lost, now that she knew she might lose the house, now that she understood she would have to pay for her own insurance and find childcare for the twins when she wanted to go out. "Do you need me or my money?" I asked directly. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "I need you," she murmured finally, but her voice didn't sound convincing. "Jessica, for 43 years I lived for you. I sacrificed my dreams, my money, my time, my opportunities, and when I finally needed to feel that you loved and valued me, you told me you preferred I was dead." Those words broke my heart in a way I can never repair. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry, really. Apologies are not enough, Jessica. The damage is done. And you know something? Maybe it was the best thing you could have told me, because it finally opened my eyes and made me understand that I have lived my whole life the wrong way." "What do you mean?" "I mean that for the first time in decades I am living for myself, and it is wonderful." "Where are you, Mom? Please tell me," Jessica implored, her voice drowned by tears. "The twins are asking for Grandma. They don't understand why you disappeared." It was fascinating how, now that I wasn't available, my grandsons suddenly missed me. For all these years, when I canceled my plans to watch them, when I bought them expensive gifts, when I took them to the park while Jessica went shopping, it was just what was expected of me. But now that I was gone, my absence was felt. "The boys will be fine," I replied, looking at the stars above Florence. "Children are resilient. What they will learn is that actions have consequences and that painful words can destroy relationships forever. But Mom, please, you can't just disappear like this. What if something happens to you? What if you get sick? How are we going to know?" Now she was worried about my well-being. How convenient, Jessica. In the last 3 years, I had 2 episodes of high blood pressure that took me to the hospital. Do you know how many times you visited me? None. You always had something more important to do. That's not true, she protested weakly. It is true. The first time I called you from the ER, you said you couldn't come because you had a party at a friend's house. The second time it was Mark's birthday and you were celebrating. The silence on the other line confirmed that she remembered every occasion perfectly. I thought it wasn't serious, she murmured. Of course, because my health was never a priority for you, but my checks were. It's not about the money, Jessica screamed. It's about you. I miss you, Mom. Do you miss me? Or do you miss having someone available 24 hours a day to solve your problems? I hung up without waiting for an answer. The phone rang again, but this time I silenced it completely. I needed peace to enjoy my first night of freedom in a new country. The following days were a constant discovery, not only of Florence but of myself. There were parts of my personality, interests, and desires that had remained dormant for decades while I lived for Jessica. Now they were waking up one by one like flowers after a long drought. I discovered that I loved Renaissance art and could spend hours admiring the details of the Uffizi Gallery. I realized I had a natural talent for languages and that Italian was not as difficult as I imagined. I rediscovered my love for mathematics, something I had taught for years but hadn't practiced for pleasure in a long time. On Wednesday, I had my meeting with the Italian financial advisor, Signor Ricci. He was an older man who helped me understand all my options for permanent residency in Italy through the elective residence visa. With your current savings and your U.S. pension, he explained, you can live comfortably here for many years. Italy has excellent health options, and the quality of life in Tuscany is exceptional. For the first time in years, I spoke openly about my finances without worrying about saving money for Jessica's emergencies. It was liberating to calculate my expenses based solely on my own needs and desires. You can also invest part of your savings here, Signor Ricci continued. Yields are stable. In 5 years, you could significantly increase your net worth if you invest wisely. Increase my net worth. How many times had I had that opportunity, but always preferred to spend the money on my daughter's whims? Is there anything else I should know? I asked. We have many clients in situations similar to yours, the advisor added with a sympathetic smile. Older people who came to Italy looking for a new start after complicated family relationships. You are not alone in this experience. That information comforted me deeply. I wasn't the only mother who had been manipulated and discarded by ungrateful children. On Friday, I joined a walking group for senior expats. There were 12 people, all between 65 and 80 years old, all seeking adventure and new experiences. During the walk through the hills surrounding Florence, I started a conversation with a woman named Sophia, a French woman of 76 who had arrived in Italy 3 years earlier. What brought you here? She asked, while we admired the panoramic view of the city. A daughter who told me her greatest birthday wish was for me to die, I replied without filters. I no longer had the energy to soften reality. Sophia looked at me with wide eyes. Seriously? Completely. After financing her house, practically raising her children, and sacrificing my retirement for her needs, she told me my presence in her life was an unbearable burden. Mon Dieu, Sophia murmured. And what did you do? I disappeared from her life, and here I am. Sophia smiled with admiration. You are very brave. I took 7 years to make the decision to distance myself from my toxic family. My son and daughter-in-law treated me like a walking ATM. During the rest of the walk, Sophia and I shared our stories. She had come to Italy after realizing her adult children only contacted her when they needed money for vacations or new cars. When she decided to set limits, they accused her of being a selfish mother and threatened not to let her see her grandchildren. The first months were hard, Sophia confessed as we descended a tree-lined path. Guilt consumed me. I thought maybe I was really selfish, that a good mother should always sacrifice for her children. And what changed your perspective? I realized that my children never asked if I was happy, if I had enough money for my own needs, or if my constant sacrifices were hurting me. They only cared about what I could give them. That is not love, Eleanor. It is exploitation. Her words resonated deeply in my heart. For decades, I had confused emotional manipulation with filial love, constant demands with genuine need. At the end of the walk, Sophia invited me to a support group that met bi-weekly. Older women who had made the difficult decision to prioritize their well-being over toxic family expectations. I accepted immediately. That night, I turned on my phone for the first time in 3 days. I had 78 missed calls and 32 text messages. Most were from Jessica and Mark, but there were also some from unknown numbers, probably friends they had recruited to try to locate me. I read the messages chronologically, observing the evolution of my daughter's panic. The first ones were still emotional. "Please, Mom, come back. We need you. The kids are crying for you." But gradually they became more desperate and focused on financial issues. "The bank called us for another meeting. They say you requested a review of the contract as co-signer. They can't take the house from us for a misunderstanding." By the 4th day, the messages had become aggressive. "This is ridiculous, Mom. You're ruining our lives over a tantrum. Act like an adult and come back." And finally, desperate. I called all the hospitals, the police, your friends. "No one knows where you are. If something happens to you, it's going to be my fault. Please just tell me you're okay." It was fascinating to observe how at no point did Jessica genuinely apologize for wishing me dead. At no point did she acknowledge the cruelty of her words or express real remorse. Everything revolved around the negative consequences my absence had for her. I decided to reply to one last message. "I am perfectly fine and happier than I have been in years. What you are experiencing now are the natural consequences of your actions. I hope this experience helps you understand the value of the people you love before it is too late with others in your life." The response came immediately. "Please, Mom, we can fix this. I promise I will never say horrible things again. Just come back." I wrote my final response. "Empty promises do not fix broken hearts. Jessica, the words you said to me revealed what you really think of me. You cannot undo that truth with desperate promises." After sending that message, I blocked her number and all numbers associated with Mark. I also blocked the unknown numbers that had called me. It was time to close this chapter once and for all. In the following week, I met again with Signor Ricci to sign the papers that would allow me to reside permanently in Italy. I also made arrangements to transfer my U.S. pension definitively and initiate the process of selling my condo in Santa Barbara. "Are you sure you want to make it permanent?" asked Signor Ricci. "It is a very significant decision." "I have never been more sure of anything in my life," I replied, signing each document with a steady hand. "For the first time in decades, I am making decisions based on my own happiness, not on the demands of others." That afternoon, I received a call from Dorothy, my dear neighbor and accomplice. Her voice sounded excited. "Eleanor, you won't believe it. Jessica came to my apartment yesterday, crying hysterically. She begged me to tell you to come back, that it had been a terrible misunderstanding." "And what did you tell her?" "I told the truth, that what she had said to you was unforgivable, and that if I were you, I would have also disappeared forever. You should have seen her face when she realized that even the neighbors knew how cruel she had been to you. She mentioned something about financial problems." "Oh, yes. She said that without your help they can't pay the mortgage, that the bank is pressuring them, that Mark can't solve the financial situation, and that the kids need things for school that they can't afford. Basically, she realized everything you did for them when she lost it." It was exactly what I expected. She didn't miss me as a person. She missed my function as financial provider and problem solver. "Dorothy," I asked her, "when someone asks for me, especially Jessica, I want you to say I'm dead to them, because in a way it's true. The Eleanor who constantly sacrificed herself for an ungrateful daughter really died on her birthday." "I understand perfectly," Dorothy replied. "And you know something? I think it's the best death you could have chosen." 3 weeks after my arrival in Italy, my new life had taken shape in ways I never imagined. I enrolled in Italian classes 3 times a week. I started a watercolor course on Tuesdays and Thursdays, discovering an artistic talent I didn't even know I possessed. I joined a book club for expats that met on Sundays. For the first time in decades, my schedule was full of activities I had chosen, activities that provided me pleasure and personal growth, not obligations imposed by the needs of others. But the most surprising transformation was financial. Without Jessica's constant demands, my savings were not only stable, they were growing. The investments I had made with Signor Ricci were already showing positive returns, and for the first time, I could plan my financial future based solely on my own needs. That Wednesday in April, while drinking morning espresso on the sunny balcony of my apartment, I received a call from an international number I didn't recognize. I hesitated to answer, but curiosity won out. "Dr. Eleanor Vance?" asked a female voice with an American accent. "Yes, this is she." "Who is speaking?" "My name is Rachel Miller. I am a social worker from Adult Protective Services in Santa Barbara County. I am calling because we received a report regarding your well-being." My blood ran cold. "A report? What kind of report?" "Your daughter, Jessica Vance, filed a report alleging that you might be suffering from dementia or cognitive decline and that you have made financial and life decisions that put you at risk. According to her, you disappeared suddenly and are living in precarious conditions abroad, possibly under the influence of third parties." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jessica had gone to the extreme of involving social services, inventing a mental illness to invalidate my decisions and force my return. "Miss Miller," I replied with a firm voice, "I am not suffering from dementia or cognitive decline. I am living in Italy by my own choice, in a comfortable apartment, with excellent medical care and in perfect mental health. My daughter's allegations are completely false." "I understand your position, Dr. Vance, but we need to verify your well-being. Would it be possible to coordinate a medical and psychological evaluation through the U.S. Consulate in Florence?" "Of course," I replied without hesitation. "I am willing to undergo any evaluation that proves I am in perfect mental health and that my decisions were made with total lucidity." After coordinating the details for the evaluation, I hung up the phone feeling a mixture of rage and disbelief. Jessica had crossed a line of no return. She hadn't just wished for my death, but now she was trying to destroy my mental credibility to regain control over my money and my life. I immediately called my lawyer in California, Mr. Harrison, who had helped me with all the legal paperwork before my departure. "Eleanor," he greeted me with concern. "Glad to hear your voice. I had a very interesting week with your daughter, I imagine. I just spoke with APS. Jessica is accusing me of having dementia." "That's not all," sighed Mr. Harrison. "She also hired another lawyer to try to challenge all the legal changes you made before leaving. She is alleging that you were not in your right mind when you signed them." "Can she do that?" "She can try, but she doesn't have a solid legal basis. I have recordings of all our conversations where you clearly demonstrate total lucidity. Furthermore, the fact that you planned your departure meticulously and are living independently in Italy contradicts any allegation of cognitive decline." "What else is she doing?" "She tried to access your bank accounts, claiming concern for your well-being. She also wanted to halt the foreclosure process on the house, but since everything is legally backed and she herself signed documents acknowledging recent financial problems, she has no valid arguments." It was incredible how far Jessica was willing to go to recover the financial benefits she had lost. "Mr. Harrison, I want you to prepare a defamation suit against my daughter. Her false allegations about my mental state can affect my reputation and my legal rights." "It will be a pleasure," he replied with satisfaction. "After seeing how she treated you, I think it's time she faced the legal consequences of her actions." 2 days later, I appeared at the U.S. Consulate in Florence for the medical and psychological evaluations. The designated doctor, Dr. Rossi, was an experienced man who immediately understood the situation. "Dr. Vance," he told me after an exhaustive 3-hour evaluation, "not only are you in perfect mental health, but the decisions you have taken demonstrate admirable lucidity and courage. Your daughter is clearly trying to manipulate the legal system to recover financial benefits. That will be officially documented." "Absolutely. I will send a detailed report to social services explaining that the allegations are unfounded and that you are living an independent and healthy life in Italy." That same afternoon, I received a call from the social worker. "Dr. Vance, we received the medical report from the consulate. It is evident that your daughter's allegations are baseless. We are going to close the case and notify Jessica that her complaints have been deemed unfounded." "Thank you," I replied. "Will this be recorded in any way?" "Yes. It will be documented that she made a false report regarding the well-being of a family member, which can have legal implications if repeated. Perfect. Jessica not only failed in her attempt to invalidate my decisions, but now she had an official record of making false reports. That night, I decided to do something I had postponed. Write a detailed account of my experience, not for Jessica, but for other women who might be living similar situations of manipulation and emotional abuse by adult children. I wrote for 4 hours, documenting every sacrifice I had made, every manipulation I had suffered, and every step I had taken to reclaim my dignity and my life. I titled the text, "When Motherly Love Becomes Self-Destruction, My Story of Liberation at 74. I sent the text to Medium and a popular blog I had discovered, specialized in stories of older women who had found the courage to radically change their lives. A week later, I received an enthusiastic response from the editor. "Eleanor," she wrote, "your story is powerful and inspiring. We received hundreds of comments from women who identify completely with your experience. Would you be willing to participate in a video interview for our YouTube channel?" I accepted immediately. It was time to use my experience to help other women trapped in toxic family dynamics. The interview was published 2 weeks later and quickly went viral. Thousands of women shared similar stories of adult children who manipulated them emotionally and exploited them financially. The comments were a catalog of pain and recognition. "My 37-year-old son lives in my house, doesn't pay rent, and insults me when I ask him to look for a job," wrote one woman. "My daughter only calls me when she needs money for vacations, but never has time to visit me when I'm sick," shared another. "I thought I was the only mother who felt used by her own children," confessed a third. But the most shocking thing came a week after the publication of the interview. I received an email from an address I immediately recognized. It was from Mark, my son-in-law. "Eleanor," he wrote, "I saw your interview on YouTube. I need you to know that I completely agree with you. What Jessica said was unforgivable, and the way she treated you for years is unacceptable. I witnessed how she manipulates and uses you, but I never had the courage to confront her because we were so dependent on your financial help." He continued, "I want you to know that the twins miss you very much and don't understand why you don't come to see them anymore. Jessica told them you are sick and can't visit, but I think they deserve to know the truth when they are older." The email ended, "I know it is probably too late for apologies, but I wanted you to know that at least one person in this family recognizes how much you sacrificed for us. I hope you are happy in your new life." I read the email 3 times before deciding how to respond. Finally, I wrote, "Mark, I appreciate your honesty, but late apologies do not change the damage caused. I hope this experience helps you be a better husband and father, and that you teach your children to value the people who love them before it is too late." It was the first time someone in my family publicly recognized the abuse I had suffered. That didn't change my decision to maintain distance, but it gave me a sense of validation I had needed for years. My new life in Italy flourished in unimaginable ways. I had genuine friends who valued me for who I was, not for what I could give. I rediscovered hobbies and passions. I had mental peace and financial stability, and most importantly, I had dignity. 6 months after my arrival in Italy, my life had assumed a form I never dreamed was possible. It was a sunny spring morning when I received a call that would change everything once more. It was Dorothy, my dear neighbor in California. "Eleanor," she said with an excited voice, "you have to hear this. Jessica lost the house." My heart stopped for a second. Despite everything, a part of me still worried about the well-being of my grandsons. "What happened exactly?" I asked. "The bank foreclosed last week. Mark couldn't recover the money he lost. They fell behind on 3 more payments, and since you are the co-signer and exercised your legal rights to protect your credit, the bank proceeded with the execution. Jessica came to me yesterday crying desperately. And the kids are okay? They moved to a small apartment on the other side of town. Mark finally got a stable job at a tourism company earning much less than before, but at least it's something secure. Jessica also had to go back to working at the clinic, not as the owner, but as an employee. It was a strange mix of feelings I experienced. I didn't feel joy at her suffering, but a deep satisfaction of justice. For the first time in their lives, Jessica and Mark were living with the real consequences of their decisions without having someone to rescue them. "Is there anything else?" continued Dorothy. Jessica asked me if I knew how to contact you. She said she wants to apologize genuinely, that she finally understands everything she lost when she lost you. And what did you tell her? I said that some wounds are too deep to heal and that some words can never be unspoken. I also said that you are flourishing in your new life and that it is probably better for both of you that she doesn't try to contact you. Dorothy was right. Throughout these 6 months, I had built an inner peace I didn't want to risk for empty promises from a daughter who repeatedly showed she only valued me when she needed me. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call from Mr. Harrison. "Eleanor, I have interesting news," he said. "Jessica's house was sold by the bank. Since you were the guarantor who put down the substantial down payment, and based on the equity clauses in the original agreement we drafted, you have the right to recover your initial investment of $200,000 plus accumulated interest and equity share. How much is that in total? $250,000. The bank has already approved the transfer. The money will be in your account next week." It was incredible. Not only had I recovered my original investment, but I gained an additional $50,000. Money that would have been lost forever if I had continued being the eternally sacrificing mother. "There is also another thing," continued Mr. Harrison. "Your condo in Santa Barbara finally sold. After commissions and expenses, the net value is $850,000. In total, I was receiving over $1 million in assets I had considered lost. With my existing savings and the investments I had made in Italy, my net worth now exceeded $2 million. At 74 years old, I was richer than I had ever been in my entire life. That night I celebrated at my favorite restaurant in Piazza della Repubblica. I ordered the best Brunello di Montalcino and toasted to the brave woman who had the courage to start over when everything seemed lost. While dining, I reflected on the whole journey. I had started this journey as a broken and humiliated mother, devastated by the cruel words of an ungrateful daughter. But now I was an independent woman, financially stable, surrounded by genuine friends, and living the life I always dreamed of. The next day, I decided to do something I had been considering for weeks, write a full book about my experience. Not just my story, but a practical guide for older women trapped in toxic family relationships. I contacted a U.S. publisher specializing in self-help and personal growth. The editor, a woman named Sarah, was immediately interested. "Eleanor," she told me during our Zoom meeting, "your story touches on a subject that affects millions of women but is rarely discussed openly. Emotional abuse by adult children is an epidemic problem that needs to be exposed." I spent the next 3 months writing When Love Hurts, Breaking Free from Family Emotional Abuse After 70. The book documented not only my personal experience but also practical strategies for recognizing manipulation, setting healthy boundaries, and finding the courage to prioritize one's own well-being. The book was published 8 months later and became a bestseller in the U.S. and Europe. The letters I received from readers were extraordinary. Women from all over the world wrote to me, telling how my story had given them the courage to make radical changes in their own lives. "I read your book and finally understood that I am not a bad mother for refusing to continue financing the irresponsibility of my 42-year-old son," wrote Martha from Texas. "Your story helped me understand that true love does not require self-destruction," shared Teresa from London. "After reading your book, I sold my big house and moved to a small apartment I can afford without depending on my children's help. For the first time in years, I sleep in peace," recounted Sophia from New York. But the letter that moved me most came a year after the book's publication. It was from a young mother named Paula. "Miss Vance," she wrote, "I am 32 years old and have a 67-year-old mother who has sacrificed her entire life for me and my brothers. After reading your book, I realized we are treating her exactly how Jessica treated you. Your story opened my eyes and made me understand that I was repeating a toxic pattern that could destroy my relationship with my mother forever. Yesterday, I called my mother and apologized for all the years of taking her for granted. I also told her I want to help her realize her own dreams instead of expecting her always to be available for mine. Thank you for helping me understand this before it was too late." That letter made me cry with joy. My pain had served to prevent other families from going through the same destruction. 2 years after my arrival in Italy, I received a physical letter in my mailbox. The handwriting on the envelope was familiar, but I couldn't identify it immediately. When I opened it, my heart raced. It was from my grandsons, now 13 years old. "Dear Grandma Eleanor," they wrote with teenage handwriting, Dad told us the truth about why you left. He said Mom told you very cruel things and that's why you decided to start a new life far from us. We want you to know that we miss you very much and understand why you left. We also want you to know that we are proud of you for being so brave. When we are older, we would like to visit you in Italy if you want to receive us. The letter included drawings they had done of me living happily in the streets of Florence. I wept for an hour after reading that letter, not out of sadness, but out of the understanding that my decision to preserve my dignity had been the right one, even if it meant distancing myself from people I loved. I decided to answer them. "My dear grandsons," I wrote, "your words are the most beautiful gift I have received in years. I love you deeply and will always love you regardless of distance. When you are older and can make your own decisions, the doors of my heart and my home will always be open to you. Until then, I want you to know that Grandma is living a full and happy life, surrounded by beauty and peace. Keep that love you feel for me, but also learn from this experience. Words have the power to build or destroy, and relationships are based on mutual respect, not unilateral sacrifice. I love you with all my heart." Today, 3 years after that terrible birthday that changed my life forever, I am sitting on the balcony of my new apartment in Florence, which I bought with my own money, contemplating the Arno River while writing the last lines of my story. I am 77 years old, have a net worth of over $2 million, a best-selling book translated into 8 languages, dear friends from all over the world, and an inner peace I never thought I would experience again. Jessica asked me as a birthday gift to disappear from her life. I granted her that wish in the most extraordinary way possible. What she never calculated was that by losing me, she not only lost a mother who loved her unconditionally, but also the person who kept her financial world stable for decades. Last week I received an email from Jessica, the first direct contact after 3 years. "Mom," she wrote, "I read your book. I never imagined how much I hurt you, how much you sacrificed for me, how much I took you for granted my entire life. I am not asking you to come back or forgive me. I just want you to know that I finally understood what you tried to teach me, although in the hardest way. I hope you are happy in your new life because you deserve all the happiness in the world." I didn't reply to the email. Some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt, but I kept her words in my heart, not as a victory, but as confirmation that all pain can eventually transform into wisdom. My disappearance was my gift to her. My new life was my gift to myself, and it was worth every tear, every sacrifice, every moment of pain that brought me here. Because sometimes the only way to save yourself is to have the courage to lose yourself completely, to be reborn as the person you were always destined to be. Now, if you liked this story, click on this next video appearing on the screen, because in it there is a story of betrayal and a twist like you have never seen before. Bye.